Chapter 2 Sightseeing. Finally, it was time for the Kind family to move from New York to Utah. Samy walked quickly through the empty condominium for the last time, making sure he hadn't left any of his favorite toys. Then he climbed into the car, where Samy was clicking Lucy into her car seat. He gave a satisfied sigh, climbed into his booster seat, pulled the seatbelt tight, and then reached for Lucy's tiny hand. At least his best friend was going with him. Jimmy locked the door and then handed the keys to the landlord. "Thank you very much, Mr. Kind," said the landlord. "You and your family are the kindest people I've ever met." "My pleasure," said Jimmy. "We will miss you here in the Big Apple," said the landlord. "You've always paid the rent on time, and we really appreciate that." "We'll miss you too," said Jimmy. "But you know Sany will always keep in touch if you follow her blog. She's quite busy with it." "Thank you. I'll keep that in mind," said the landlord. "My husband's right," smiled Sany. "It's what I do." "Good luck, Mr. Kind," said the landlord. "Enjoy Utah." "Thanks," said Jimmy, shaking the landlord's hand. "We will." Jimmy headed to the car and climbed inside. As the Kind family drove away from the condominium, Samy noticed that the moving van was following behind them, but it wouldn't be for long. In fact, all of their boxes would already be in their new home when they get there. Throughout the long drives every day, Samy tried to keep himself entertained by playing with Lucy in her car seat or playing on either Sany's phone or Jimmy's. There were even times when Samy and Lucy napped the day away until a stop came. They drove through a couple of states pretty much every day, sometimes more. After a long day of driving, they stayed at a hotel to rest and play for an hour or so in the pool. They also had to make plenty of stops for gas. There were even times when Samy asked if they were almost there, but then Jimmy or Sany would remind him that they weren't there yet. Sometimes he asked to go to the bathroom just so he could get out and stretch his legs. Besides, Lucy almost always needed a clean diaper. It seemed to Samy that all this riding in the car was taking forever, and he was starting to wonder if they would ever get there. It wasn't all bad, though. Sany said that they might never travel across the United States by car again, so they needed to spend some time sightseeing. Their first big stop was in Ohio. They went to Cedar Point and spent the day riding kiddie rides and picnicking on the beach. Besides the rides, Samy's favorite part of it was meeting a huge white dog. They made another big stop in Chicago. Sany wanted to visit some of the art museums. Samy was bored most of the time, but he did like the picture of a woman standing next to a man with a pitchfork. Samy loved riding through Minnesota. There were so many beautiful lakes. One of them looked almost like an ocean with an island in the distance. Their next big stop was South Dakota. Samy loved Mount Rushmore. They took lots of pictures and shared them with Grandma and Grandpa on Sany's phone. Then from South Dakota, they drove to Wyoming. Samy was so excited to see Yellowstone National Park. His teacher had talked about it in school, and he could hardly wait to see Old Faithful. He was surprised that there weren't many houses in South Dakota or in Wyoming. He wondered if there were many people living in Utah. Would there be enough kids that he could make friends? And then, on the day they left Wyoming, a few hours later, Sany told Samy, "Welcome to Utah, Samy." "Really?" asked Samy excitedly. "Does that mean we're at the new house?" "Not yet," said Sany. "We still have a few more hours to get there." "Really? How big is Utah?" asked Samy, feeling stunned. We just got in Utah now, said Jimmy from the driver's seat. It's a bit bigger than New York, but don't worry, there's still plenty to see. Okay, said Samy with a sigh. Senny laughed. We'll be at our new house today. But when? Asked Samy. We'll probably be there by dinner time, said Jimmy. Okay, said Samy. He laid back in his seat and watched the Utah mountains whizzing by, and soon he dozed off into a long road trip nap.